There's an old mantra that says, think globally and act locally, but most people in the US and probably the world think and react locally first. And that means if their jobs are disappearing, they reach out to the nearest irritant to look for some kind of solution. Is there any way, you think, to be able to link the energy future and some of the dire predictions that you've made to the loss of real job security, feeling of health and welfare for people, so that in fact that can be a driver in the way it's very much a political driver and will be next week?
Well, I think there is a way to make that connection, and the President and many people in his administration have been trying to make it, although not with great resonance. And that is, again, that what we need to be doing in terms of investments in our energy infrastructure, investments in cleaner and more efficient energy technologies, these are job-creating investments that we need to be making. We need to be investing in rail in this country. That would be a job-creating enterprise. We need to be investing in more efficient buildings. That creates jobs. We need to be investing in energy research, development, and demonstration. That creates jobs. We need to develop better ways to manufacture things in this country, which are better not simply in terms of how much energy they use and how much material they use, but are better in terms of using our inherent advantages in this country to keep more of the value added here rather than having it go overseas. We were talking about some of these approaches earlier today in side meetings around this event. I expect that MIT is going to be a leader in thinking about precisely this question of how we develop better approaches to manufacturing, better approaches to clean and efficient energy, better approaches to investing in adaptation to the climate change we can't avoid, that are going to be approaches that create jobs rather than export them or lose them. We've got people lined up at microphones, so I guess we go over
Simple
here.
question, Joe. International cooperation is very important. What do you think about the passage of so-called 123 legislation to collaborate with the Russians? You know, we cannot exchange equipment. It's really a hindrance, not having.
Yeah, there are lots of hindrances. I mentioned, thank you for that question, Bruno. I mentioned that the President charged me very early in the administration with building up this cooperation, and one of the things we quickly discovered is there are a variety of impediments in the way. Some of them are impediments in the form of export controls, some of them are impediments in the form of visa requirements, some of them are impediments in terms of tax policy, either in our country or in other countries. I've been working particularly closely with the Russian Minister of Science and Education, Andrei Fursenko, and trying to get some of these obstacles beaten down. We actually have a charge from the two presidents, Medvedev and Obama, to get rid of these impediments as quickly as we can. And with the help of that mandate from the presidents, I think we're going to succeed.
Thank you.
On this side.
Yes, I was wondering if you could address what I believe to be a large public perception challenge, in the sense that, one, we have a growing scientific literacy gap in the United States, particularly in our younger population. Two, we have a large oil lobbying industry that's able to, for example, put Proposition 23 in the state of California on the ballot and label it as the California Jobs Initiative, when in fact it just means to stop any sort of climate change efforts in the state of California. And third, from my limited experience, to be what seems to be the largest population of climate change deniers in the United States versus other countries. How do you and the Office of the President seek to address these challenges of public perception in trying to promote some of the things you've talked about today?
Well, this is a large and complicated question, and there's a short-term part to it and a long-term part. We take the long-term first. We do have a problem of scientific literacy in this country, and the President places a very high priority on lifting the level of our science, technology, engineering, and math education at every level from preschool to grad school. He has often said that he thinks this is the single most important thing we could do for the future of our country, is improve the level of science and engineering capability and literacy. And that's not just in order to have the next generation of inventors and innovators and makers and builders and Nobel Prize winners, but it's to have the technology-savvy workforce that we need to be competitive in the 21st century, and it's to have the science-savvy citizenry that we need to have citizens be effective in a democracy in which more and more of the issues in the policy arena have science and technology component. And we are not doing well, as we can tell in the United States at the moment, where you have the number of people who believe that climate change is a real and compelling problem has actually fallen from about 85% a few years ago to somewhere between 50 and 70, depending on which poll you believe, as a result of a bunch of nothing burgers in the form of stolen emails and rather minor mistakes in the thousands and thousands of pages of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's summaries. And you have such fundamental misunderstandings, and people actually imagine that the IPCC is the source of our knowledge about climate change, rather than understanding that the source of our knowledge is the mountain of peer-reviewed literature that's been produced by climate scientists over decades, of which the IPCC is only the summarizer and interpreter. We have to get better at telling that story. We have to get better at explaining to people, for example, that the temperature of the Earth is like the temperature of your body. When your body temperature goes up 2 degrees Celsius, you know you have a problem, because your body temperature is telling you something about the state of the system. It's just an index, a proxy. Same is true of the average temperature of the Earth, and when it goes up 2 degrees Celsius, it's telling us we have a problem in terms of the state of the climate system. There are ways to explain this to the public, but we haven't gotten very good at them. And the president, in fact, when PCAST met with the president some months ago to talk about this very topic, the president said to PCAST, you people have to get better at telling this story. You have to get better at explaining this. You have to get out there more so that people come to understand that the deniers are sort of in the same position that people who denied that cigarette smoking caused lung cancer were a couple of decades ago. The evidence is overwhelming to the contrary, but most people don't understand very much about the nature of science or the nature of evidence, and so we have a steep hill to climb. We also have, I think, a real challenge that comes from the fact that so many of our media love controversy that they will give equal time to opposite sides of anything, no matter what the balance of respectable opinion and analysis is. And we have a problem, I think, with money in our political system, which you also alluded to in your question. The president thought the Citizens United decision of the Supreme Court was so bad that he chastised the Supreme Court in his State of the Union message, to the discomfort of some of the members sitting there. I agree with that. I think we have a terrible situation where unlimited amounts of money can be poured into political campaigns and people don't even know who provided it. When there's no transparency and no accountability in that sense, you're going to have a lot of nonsense out there being paid for by folks with particular agendas. This side.
Hi, quick question. Would a national broadband plan have a major impact on scientific research?
That's a really good question. I think we need a national broadband plan, and I think that better broadband would certainly have a positive impact in a variety of ways. I don't really have an intelligent opinion about how much it would improve the pace of discovery and innovation in science and technology. There would be an improvement in the productivity of the science and engineering enterprise, but I can't say by how much. I don't know if anybody can. You got an answer to that, Richard? Over here.
Looking at the massive expansion of the nuclear energy sectors in India, in China, in South Korea, do you think the U.S. will be likely to be able to retain their current position of being technology leaders in that domain? And is that actually your objective, to retain that position?
I think for a whole variety of reasons, the United States needs to stay at the cutting edge of nuclear technology. And in order for us to do that, it would be nice if we had a domestic nuclear industry building nuclear power plants in this country. I would like to see that happen. Steve Chu would like to see it happen. The President would like to see it happen, not least because if I didn't make that clear enough in this talk, although nuclear energy is not a panacea for the climate problem, there is no panacea, it could make a significant contribution if we could make it expandable again. It would be easier to solve the climate problem with the help of nuclear energy than without it. And I think it's in our interest, therefore, to help ourselves and help the rest of the world figure out how to get that done with the appropriate technologies, the appropriate training, the appropriate regulations. And you know, if you look at China and India, South Korea, they are expanding their nuclear operations rapidly. It will be a long time before they're as big even as the U.S. nuclear operation is today. We still have the most nuclear reactors in the world, the most nuclear kilowatt hours in the world. People say, oh, France is the leader. They get 78% of their electricity from nuclear energy. But we generate more than twice as many nuclear kilowatt hours as France does. We get a smaller percentage of our electricity because our electricity pie is so much bigger. So the United States is not yet in any danger of being left in the dust in this domain, but we've got to pay attention. We've got to make the investments. We've got to do what needs to be done to create the environment in which this technology becomes expandable again.
Last question.
Okay, a lot has been said about global responsibility and how the U.S. can be a leader in actually leading the world to reduce climate change and go into greener technology. So my question is, would it be feasible to actually move beyond just nuclear investment and nuclear deals with foreign countries and move into actually investing in alternative energy technology and other such as solar energy, wind energy? And do you think that the U.S. would have the funds or the incentive to do these things?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, I hope I made clear that there is no silver bullet, that we can't do only one thing. We need the renewables. We need increased efficiency. We need clean biofuels. We need better fuel cells. We need electric vehicles. We need more wind turbines. We need cheaper photovoltaic cells. We're investing in all of those things. We should be investing much more. When I talk to my counterparts in other countries, and I have met with the science ministers of India, of Russia, of China, of Japan, of South Korea, of Brazil, among many others, everybody puts at the top of the list of the topics on which they want to cooperate the following four: clean energy, climate change, sustainable agriculture, and public health, biomedicine and public health. There are other issues. Some want to cooperate on nanotech. Some want to cooperate on infotech. But everybody in that group wants to cooperate on clean energy, on climate change, on sustainable agriculture, and public health. And we're doing it. We are building cooperation with India and with China in renewables, not just in nuclear energy. We're building cooperation with them on more efficient vehicles, on more efficient buildings. And we've got to do it all. If you look at the magnitude of the challenge and the amount by which we need to reduce the ratio of greenhouse gas emissions to useful energy supplied to the economy, we can leave no stone unturned. And that's what we're trying to get done. Thank you very much.